All right, I'm going to talk about the secret psychology of the Matrix. And this is a video that's been uh, a long time in the making without me really knowing it. I've watched this movie probably more than any other movie I've ever watched in my life. And there's, um, with recent people talking about, red pill and blue pill and leaving the Matrix, and it's become such a strong part of culture and counterculture, and I think as a story, as a mythology, as a way of looking at psychology, there's so much to dig into with this movie, and I've had countless conversations about it with people around me, people I know, using it as metaphors for what's really going on in your own personal life. And that's where I think it's really strongest. Is it offers a way to contextualize and like give you something to expect when you start to go down a path of curiosity or self-actualization, as Neo starts to do in this movie. So um, you know it's going to be filled with spoilers. So if you've never seen the movie, probably don't watch this first. Check it out and then come back, because you'll also be able to, relate and understand. And I'm going to kind of go through chronologically different things that I want to point out in the movie. So if you've seen it, you'll be able to fill in those blanks of what's going on a little easier. But yeah, so much to dig into. Got a lot of great ideas from people I've talked with, watching videos, conversations with my brother, my cousin, and friends. And I think it's definitely worth a deep dive, which is what we're about to do right now. So first thing I want to talk about is the beginning of the movie. Neo. It's interesting. The first shot of Neo, who is the main character, is him sleeping, and he gets this mysterious message on his computer. It says, "Wake up, Neo." It says the Matrix has you, and he's kind of like in this little small dingy apartment. News news websites up on his screen. Scattered books everywhere, and so one thing I want to talk about is a way to look at the Matrix is to look at each character as separate people, separate characters, but you can also look at it as a collective conscious, where each character represents a different fragment of the personality. So one person, they have these different, feelings and emotions and types of potential inside themselves, and each character can act out and express different parts of one full human being. And so one way you can look at Neo here is he's asleep, he's sleeping, he doesn't understand his entire environment. He's in the same way, as you grow and develop, you'll realize one day that you've been kind of asleep at the wheel, in your life. And so I think it's interesting. The first shot of Neo is him sleeping, and I think it's trying to kind of communicate that concept of being asleep in life. And his curiosity is really what kind of pulls him out of it. Obviously, he's shocked by this computer, getting a message from someone he doesn't know who it is. But it says, the Matrix has you. Follow the white rabbit. He's like, follow the white rabbit. What is that about? And he gets a knock at the door, and this guy shows up with his crew, and they're picking up some sort of like illegal type of software that Neo is selling to them. And a little foreshadowing here, you need to unplug, man. And they're like, hey, you should come out with us. We're going out to this club, this bar. And Neo's like, yeah, I don't know about that. But then this girl on the right here, He's like, what do you think? This guy says, what do you think, DeJour? Should we take him with us? And she hugs him and says, definitely. And on her back shoulder, he sees the white rabbit. And he changes his mind. He says, yeah, okay, I'll go. And, you know, I think what this is a really good symbol of, if you're a curious person and you want to pursue and understand things and yeah, just pursue knowledge, you know, you're going to get little hints from people, from books, from you know, you'll hear one little thing that just doesn't match well with the rest of the world. And I think the message on his computer, you know, follow the white rabbit, wake up, you know, knock knock, there's someone coming to get you now. You know, this is those little breadcrumbs that, you know, it can symbolize breadcrumbs of people who have experienced a greater sense of fulfillment and are trying to communicate that to people who may be still asleep. And nothing happens though without Neo's curiosity and even somewhat a little bit of trust in this follow the white rabbit thing. He sees a white rabbit on this woman's shoulder. He says, "Oh, geez, how does this person on my computer know all this?" Right? So he's having these little thoughts of like, okay, I need to figure out what's going on here. And when he shows up at the club, that's when he sees Trinity, and he says, "Trinity, you're the hacker that, you know, got into the IRS database, right?" And he says, "Oh, I thought you were a guy." She's like, "Most guys do." And you know, I think this is a good way of, you know, showing when, you know, it's kind of like real recognize real, right? Somebody, you know, people who have gone down the path, you know, the road less traveled, that have followed their curiosity, that that know that there's more to life than just the generic, you know, conveyor belt of do this, do that, and then you die. And I think, you know, Trinity here, you know, is a representative of somebody who sees Neo and understands that he wants more and can see his potential. You know, and along with Morpheus, who's going to be introduced later, but you know, they both see that Neo's asking questions. He's a little bit different than everyone else. So she says, you know, I know why you sit at your computer every night. I know why you can't sleep. You know, you're searching for him, and I know because I was also searching for him. But and they're talking about Morpheus. But she said, I wasn't really searching for him. I was just searching for a question. You know, I was asking a question, and she says, you know the question just as I did. And he says, what is the Matrix? You know, and I think this can be a good parallel to what is life? What do I want? What is right? What is wrong? What is everything around me? There's something off, and there's more to know. There's more to learn, and I want to keep following until I figure out more. And Trinity recognizes that. She says, you know, I know that you want to know what the Matrix is, and the answer's out there. So she's again planting more seeds to where it's still up to Neo. You know, he could just be scared and not ever pursue anything more. But he keeps following that curiosity, which I think is a strong part of, you know, psychological development. You're curious about, well, you know, who am I? Why do I do what I do? What am I meant to do? What's a good fit for me? What's not a good fit for me? So it's that path of, you know, trial and error and following curiosity and having people, you know, mentors that are a little bit farther down the path than you are. And this it's a little gift that represents the part of the movie where he's, you know, he wakes up late after, you know, the day after going to the club, and you know, rushes off to his corporate job and gets, you know, reamed out by his boss, and then sits down in his cubicle, and someone delivers a package to him, and he opens it up, and it's a phone, and the phone immediately rings as soon as he opens it, and he picks it up, and he said, you know, it's Morpheus. He says, you know, they're coming to get you, Neo. Who? He's like, I don't know, but you got to get out of there if you don't want to find out. And so I think this is a good insight of as someone's realizing Neo's realizing, his job and his status quo isn't just not right for him. And when he pokes his head out of the cubicle, he sees that these guys in suits and police are there to come get him, and someone points at his cubicle, and so he gets on the phone with Morpheus. He's like, "You need to do exactly as I say, if you want to get out of here." And then Neo, he says, you got to go outside the window. You got to jump onto this thing, this window wiping thing outside of this super tall skyscraper. And Neo's too scared. He's like, I can't do this. I'm going to fall. And so I think what this can represent as well is, I think sometimes there's the fear that holds you back from leaving a situation that's not right for you. Even when it's, drastic circumstances like him getting arrested, and, having having that phone, having that connection to Morpheus is kind of like when you have, advice from someone who's done something or is successful or done something that you want to do. And yes, you can hear that advice, but following it and listening to it takes another level of action and courage. And, it's something that he's just not ready for at this point in his journey of growth. So, he goes with the agents and they take him away instead of him escaping the office. So yeah, and then the agents they interrogate him. They insert his body with a bug, and then he wakes up. He's like, was that a dream? What the hell was that? And so then Trinity comes by in this car. After he's been released by the agents, released by the police, and he's kind of back out in society. That agents basically say, get Morpheus for us. We want you to, he's the most dangerous man alive, which, is also a great metaphor to, real life. Like if the agents and the police and the government or whatever is being represented by these guys and these scary guys in suits that'll, are, as Neo says, like Gestapo, the most dangerous man alive. He's a known terrorist. These words are used by, power structures to describe, basically rebels, right? So, anyone who goes against what that, what their system or their stated goals, they're going to use like the most terrible words to describe those people. They're dangerous. They're terrorists. Bring Morpheus to us. Bring justice to us. You've been contacted by him. We know that. So that's when Trinity picks him up, and so where are you going? He's just following this curiosity of who are these people and why are they trying to help me? Why are they trying to get in touch with me? And someone in the car turns around, points a gun at him, and he says, "What the hell is this?" Trinity says it's for our protection, because they don't know how much Neo's been compromised. And he says, fuck this, and opens the door. And Trinity says, "Please, Neo, you have to trust me." And he says, "Why?" And she says, "You've been down there, Neo. You know that road. You know exactly where it ends. And I know that's not where you want to be." So I think this is super powerful for, in a psychological, if you're taking a psychological lens on this. There comes a point when you're following, when you're curious, you're on the road less traveled, you're on a self-actualization path, and you'll reach certain challenges and certain fears, and you're not sure who to trust, and everything's up in the air because you are open to new ideas. And when everything is up in the air, again, you're in this like limbo mode where like, okay, I don't know if I can trust these people in this car. I just got, interrogated by a bunch of guys in suits. Seems like everyone's out to get me. I don't know what's going on. But at the same time, it's the same thing in psychology. It's like you can even take a look at this, like, someone with an addiction, right? If they're going to pick up the bottle, or they're going to, snort whatever, or they're going to inject whatever, again, that's the road they've been down. They know exactly where it leads. It leads to just more, dissatisfaction, um, more self harm, or if it's, it doesn't even have to be something about drugs or addiction. It can be just um, old habits that no longer serve you, and that you have to get rid of if you're going to progress. So that's what Trinity is saying to Neo here. She's saying, look at this road. You know exactly where that ends, and that's you can go ahead and get out of the car, and the story ends here. But I think from what I can tell of the type of person you are, I think you want more. And one of the things in the interrogation is that the agents were talking about, Neo, you're living a double life. You're this guy who works at this corporation, but you're also a hacker, and your hacker alias is Neo, and you've broken all these laws. So from Morpheus and Trinity's perspective, and the rest of the crew, he's not just, he's demonstrated through his actions that he is willing to play with the rules. He's not just going to follow something just because an authority tells him. He's going to explore and bend things, when he can. And so, all of this culminates in her saying, hey, look, I don't think you're the type of person that's just going to go down the same old road again. I know you want more. And that's when they bring him to meet Morpheus, and Morpheus is down. Trinity says, just give you one piece of advice: be honest with him. And one of the most powerful scenes in all of movies, and really, really powerful connections to life. And this is where Morpheus says, what do you want to know what the Matrix is? And he says, the Matrix is all around you. You can't see it, smell it, taste it, touch it, but it's a prison for your mind. You feel it when you pay your taxes, when you go to church, and I think he's touching on, becoming a free thinker requires you to question pretty much everything. And he's touching on, church, organized religion, like there's something just wrong, paying taxes to this, paying this extortion money, essentially to a bunch of people who, claim to govern you, but really are just, just want to get paid, and will threaten you with, prison or violence if you do not comply. I think he says, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes, when you do something else. I don't remember what the other thing was, but he just touches on these different parts of life where you're like, hey, why do I not feel free in these moments? Why do I feel like everyone else is following this set of rules that doesn't really serve them? And why do I feel like there's something wrong with that? And then Morpheus says, you are a slave, like just like everyone else, you were born into bondage, prison for your mind. And, you can take this psychological, you take this political, you take it psychological. It's, it's the slavery of expectation. What is it, society? What is your family? What is the church? What is government? What does culture expect you to do? And you better dance, monkey, or, some bad things are going to happen. And, if you take it political, it's, it's the slavery of society. It's the slavery that, you know, if you look at taxes, you know, it's basically extortion. You know, it is slavery. But you get to own your, you know, if you take an old slave, it's like, oh yeah, well, I own this person and I'm not going to pay them, and that's not very popular. So why don't we just have them be quote unquote free, and then we'll tax them and threaten them with prison if they don't pay. So it's kind of like still slavery. It's this extortion, and it's a little bit more hidden. So all these crazy types of things that are not obvious to someone growing up or someone just developing. And it's the parallels in real life are exactly that. There's when everything around you is funded or has an interest in the status quo, right? You're not going to hear about anarchist ideas in a government-funded school. You're not going to hear about atheism in a church. You're not going to hear about fresh new ideas, more efficient ways to do things in a bogged down, corporate bureaucracy. So all these things are kind of, things that Morpheus hints at, and it's a good parallel to that moment where you're like, yeah, there is something wrong here, and I do want to know more, which comes to, red pill, blue pill. And he says, take the blue pill, you wake up tomorrow and believe whatever you want to believe. Take the red pill, then, you stay in Wonderland, I'll show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And, red pill is everywhere in modern culture now. It's, just taking red pill can be really applied to any different facet of life that I was just talking about. People talk about red pill for politics, red pill for religion, and for men there's a lot of red pill about intersexual dynamics with women and things like that. So anytime there's a red pill moment, it's hey, there's like what everyone around me kind of says is true and kind of parrots and mimics, and they're all like, yeah, this, that. It's that conveyor belt, like the 90% of people are just going to go down and not like ask questions. And then there's this 10% of like, okay, everyone else seems to understand these, or not everyone else, but there seems to be like what is down is actually up, and what is up is actually down. And people say that they want this, but they actually want that. And so you're always looking for the counterintuitive, and you're looking for the extra way of looking at things that more accurately maps onto reality. And so when Morpheus says, hey, remember, all I'm offering is the truth. And, this can be a great, moment, like if you have a friend, a mentor, maybe a therapist, psychologist you're working with, and they're just offering a mirror to reality, they're not saying, hey, everything's going to be much better, once this happens. I'm just going to give you the truth the best way I see it. So that, he's managing expectations here. Morpheus is, says, I'm not promising you, great things are going to happen right away. I'm just saying that, hey, this is actually what goes on in life. Take the red pill, look at things in a way that the majority do not, and the majority don't care to look at. Yeah, and then this part is, he takes the red pill. They're like, okay, we're bringing him into this other room. We're gonna get him out of the Matrix. He's taking the red pill. It's working its way through his system. Here we go. He sits down in the chair, and he sees the mirror. And I think this has been used in a lot of different movies as a way of symbolizing the fractured self. Like in a psychological journey of self-discovery, it's about becoming more aligned and more of a whole, full person. It's consolidating all these parts of yourself that you don't like, and consolidating and bringing it together to accept yourself, all pieces of yourself. And what happens is, the mirror cracks fix by themselves. And Neil's like, "Did you guys just see that?" And he touches the mirror, and now it's fixed, and now it's like, it's almost like liquid. And so I think that mirror fixing itself is a moment of that symbolizes, okay, now that I'm like really understanding the truth and I'm about to understand, I'm giving myself to this journey of growth. And I think in real life, there's those moments where there's maybe things that, parts of your past that you've forgotten about, or that you've buried, maybe things that, maybe things you feel guilty about, shameful about, maybe apologies that you need to make, or apologies you need to demand from people. And before you move forward with things, you need to look back and see, okay, why am I the way I am now, and what needs to happen for me to become more full, so that I can accept things and move on, and become, and accept myself, accept others, accept the past. And instead of being fractured, where I'm like, okay, I have this part of me, but I have also this part of me, and there's some friction because I don't want to like accept that, or I want to reject that part of me. So this mirror kind of gelling together and becoming whole again is a symbol of that, a symbol of becoming whole, becoming more integrated in the self. So yeah, then there's that part where he wakes up, and I think one of the things that when you're pursuing this knowledge, and you do difficult things, you have uncomfortable conversations, you do what you need to do to make peace with your past and with your relationships. There's this moment where it's like this bittersweet moment. You feel amazing because you feel like you've just conquered this mountain and you just reached the summit. But then you also have this feeling of like, wow, that was so difficult to do that and confront myself, confront others, and be able to address things that are off, things that are wrong, so that I can move forward, so that I can be more free. And there's the bittersweetness of, you say, wow, that was amazing and I feel great, but at the same time I say, wow, there's also the sadness. You're like, there's so many people that are just not on this path. There's so many people that are not going to understand me after these experiences I've been through. And I think Neo kind of sees that. He wakes up, he's like, oh my God, what is going on? Where am I? And why is everyone else still sleeping next to me? I think there's that feeling of, it's not a worry that other people won't understand. It's just it's a kind of a sadness, and kind of like a, this path, I'm kind of by myself, and that's okay. But at the same time, it just kind of, like in my own life, yeah, I had that moment where I'm just like, wow, this was extremely difficult to have some tough conversations. And you're just like, but I know that there's some people that are going to be born, live, and die and never understand the exhilaration and payoff of doing these tough things. And so I think, this part of Neo waking up, sees everyone still sleeping. It's kind of touched on that for me. And then Morpheus, again, welcome to the real world. One of the things that I realized is, if you take that idea of looking at the Matrix not as, the characters, not as separate people, but each character represents something within yourself. You can be the mentor of Morpheus. You can be the curious explorer of Neo. You can be the comforting, comforting, and what else is Trinity? She's comforting and supportive, friend. And like, you can be these different types. And one thing is one thing that's interesting about the phone in the movie is the phone is the connection between the Matrix and the real world. So in order to leave the Matrix and get back to the real world, you need to get on the phone. And I think that's a strong symbol of, communication with people who you can trust, and, your inner circle, and people who are just like really in touch with reality and are also on the same path as you and also willing to take action. And so Morpheus saying, welcome to the real world, he's like, yeah, that was crazy, right? And so, you can have this conversation with somebody who knows what the fuck just happened to you and all the things that you're probably thinking and feeling, because they've been there too. And, Morpheus says, like, hey, he's never used his eyes before. That's why his eyes are sensitive. And what also happens is, before Neo can just like say, okay, I'm in the real world now, I'm out of the Matrix, there's a time lapse that seems to show like maybe a couple of weeks of him, like his body recovering. They're like fixing his muscles because they've atrophied. And I think whenever you do something tough like that, tough emotionally and spiritually, and you have those tough conversations, whether that's, with friends, parents, people from your past that you feel you need to have a conversation, whether that's about, addressing wrongs or, again, like, saying, making an apology or demanding an apology, or just share, not even necessarily like, I think this is probably my own feelings coming in here, but there's also times where it's not demanding an apology, but it's just speaking honestly about your experience and pain that you've been through, caused as a result of a relationship. That's more of a real world example of some of these things that are, tough to do. And there's like a period of healing after that. You're like, oh my God, like, wow, I didn't realize I was carrying that burden that I didn't need to carry, there's a feeling of, I wasn't supposed to shoulder this entire burden, and I've been doing it for so long, it was also almost invisible to me. So Neo goes through this healing process where it's like, oh my God, I'm out of the Matrix finally. The Matrix being all these, all these lies, all these, half-truths, all these questions, this curiosity that I had building up that just like culminated in this breakthrough moment, because that's how I there's many ways to look at, I think, Neo has multiple breakthroughs throughout the movie, but, a breakthrough moment where just everything just snaps and it makes sense, like for me in my life, it's spent, hundreds of hours, listening to podcasts, reading books, learning about history, psychology, religion, business, all these different disciplines and dynamics come together. And because of the way the human mind is structured, it's structured like a network, and the more nodes, the more knowledge you can gain, that builds another node which can connect with another node, and then you make new connections between different ideas, and you're able to, I think those breakthrough moments is like all those nodes just fire at the same time, they all connect with each other, and you're like, oh shit, like that is why this is happening. And you can get a big picture view of the world and your place in it, and all the emotions that come with solving kind of like a part of your part of yourself, solving a riddle of an interesting like intersection of yourself and the world and your relationships, what you believe, things you believe that might not be true, and things that are true that you don't know about yet. And yeah, it just all culminates in this moment of wow, I'm more awake now, more free. And then what's interesting here is Morpheus shows Neo, you think the world is the way it was, at the turn of the 20th century, like, shows like, a skyline like New York type of thing. And he says, actually, you think it's 1999. Actually, it's closer to, 2199. And artificial intelligence has actually taken over the world. There was a war. We don't know who struck first. Was it the humans? Was it the AI? We don't know. And basically just drops this whole reality truth bomb onto Neo, and basically says like, the humans scorched the sky so that the AI couldn't use solar energy. So instead, the AI started using humans as batteries, and in order for the battery to keep working, they need to keep their mind preoccupied, which is why there's the Matrix. And so he kind of has this moment where he's like, no, it's not possible. Like, I don't believe it. Take me back. Send me back. So it's kind of this like denial. And I don't quite understand the sequencing of it. And maybe this is where if somebody ends up watching this that's a psychologist, or if you have some particular knowledge in this kind of pattern of, I don't know if it's grief or growth, grief or growth, but it's like he has a he denies it. Like, he's in this denial phase where he's like, no, this is not, like, this can't be, it's impossible. I want to get me out of here. Like, get me out of this sequence, not the sequence, this training program they have. And so I know that denial is an important part of, I know there's like the grief stages, right? But I haven't quite got my exact feeling on why he has this denial after being told the truth. Because on one hand, like, he does have a breakthrough moment, and he has his sort of, that the mirror coming together, the personality really coming together to become, more whole. So that kind of represents like, that feeling of like, okay, I'm whole, I can move forward. But then he also has denial after that. So, maybe it's not exactly chronological as a typical psychological journey would be, but something to think about. Comment below this video if you have thoughts on that. I'd be interested to hear. And then, this is like similar to myself, my own life. I felt really, I did a lot of, had a lot of tough conversations. I felt spiritually and more emotionally more free. And after that, I was like, okay, now it's time for financial freedom. If this is what spiritual and emotional freedom is like, I need more freedom. Give me more types of freedom. And so that's one way to look at it. From my own personal perspective, is then this training in the dojo begins, where it's like you're dealing with more tactical, practical stuff. It's like business. Like learning how to sell, learning how basically business works. And even martial arts, and you can actually take it literally to whether it's like jujitsu or or other physical activity. It's like hitting the gym. I mean, from a guy's perspective, like there's like different types of freedom: emotional freedom, spiritual freedom, and then there's different types of growth. There's growth of your bank account, growth of your body, growth of your network, growth of your dating prospects. And so I think this is a cool part of like Neo's like, okay, I'm out of the matrix. It's time to train on like some practical stuff so I can keep moving forward, growing this freedom that I have and the different facets that freedom entails. And one of the things that Morpheus says during the sequence is, I'm just trying to show you the door, but you need to be the one that walks through it. Meaning that you can get all the training in the world, all the advice in the world. You can go to, hundreds of hours of counseling, or, get mentors and people to tell you what would be a good idea for you, or to offer a mirror to, put up against, yourself. And so you can kind of get another person's perspective and check your reality with their reality. But at the end of the day, it's going to require you to take action to walk through the door, quote unquote, the door, whatever the door is for you. And, it just shows that you can't force someone to grow. Like, same concept as a flower. You can't pull the flower, out of the soil. It has to blossom and bloom on its own. So you can create the right environment for growth. You can water the plants. You can, put it in the sun, give it some good soil, but you can't actually make it grow. And the growth comes from within. So I think that's what they're talking about here. And then there's I think one of the most important scenes of the whole movie. By the way, I'm using GIFs and pictures because I don't want to get, copyright striked. But there's this, again, they're like not in the actual matrix itself, but, Morpheus is taking Neo through these different training programs so he can kind of get an idea of what's going on. In this part, he says the matrix is a system, Neo, and that system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, carpenters, lawyers, the very minds of the people that we're trying to save. But until we do, these people are still part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged, and many of them are so inured, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. And then there's a follow-up part where, they're walking through the street as Morpheus is saying this, and he sees this, hot blonde in a red dress, and Morpheus says, were you looking at the woman in the red dress? Something like that. And he's like, look again. And he turns around and it's an agent. And so I think what this is one of the things Morpheus says is, after Neo has this, spat of denial, goes through the denial phase, he says, we have a rule: we don't try to free a mind once it's too old. The mind has trouble letting go and facing the reality. And this sequence, as they're walking through the streets looking at all these people, and he's saying, they're not ready to be unplugged yet. It's a recognition kind of the same thing when Neo woke up in the pod. He's recognizing that not everyone is going to be ready for these type of truth bombs, at least not all at once. And they're going to fight to hold on to what they believe. So you can look at this as, I think one feeling you have is, as you're questioning everything and you're kind of excited about these new ideas, and that excitement, enthusiasm causes you to want to share it with other people, but you'll get this pushback, and sometimes you don't know where it's coming from. And eventually you'll chalk it up and you'll realize, like, oh wow, like I'm like, again, it's like kind of like a lonely journey. It's not entirely, you're not entirely alone, because you do have, the Morpheuses and the Trinities and, the people who have walked that path, but you realize looking around, you're like, wow, like most people just don't get it, you know? And when I share these like new and these new ideas, I don't realize that it's scary to some people. And, you know, some people hold on to these like beliefs so tight. And even if they're not serving them, or they're holding on these old habits that are not serving them, or they believe something that's just not true, but it's comforting to them because it's what they know. And when he sees the woman in the red dress, he turns around and she's turned into an agent. What Morpheus is saying is like anyone who's not with us is potentially an agent. And I think the reason for that is in life, if you share some deep truth or red pill that can potentially destabilize somebody, you know, because it's such a truth bomb, such a hard reality check, that they will lash out at you. I have a distinct memory of this with somebody that I knew. And I remember I was just like, I stepped out of the situation. I'm like, oh my God, this is the Matrix. The Matrix is real. And it was like somebody who I was pointing out something with in relationship with their parent, and like, and the parent, you know, was not a very good supportive parent, and I saw the parents, like when I pointed it out in kind of a blunt way, I saw the wrath of that parent channel through the person onto me, and in that moment it's just like, holy shit, like you realize that you can't, I mean, you can, but you can't just drop like red pills on people that are not ready for it, because they will fight you. They'll fight back. It's like a knee-jerk reaction because they are part of the quote unquote the system, and the system is this unreality. It's this untruth that everyone is trapped in. Not, you know, I won't say everyone, but you know, I think part of the process of going from child to teenager to adult is this, you know, this healthy sequence of psychological development and accepting reality, accepting truth, accepting yourself. And there's a lot of people that get caught at certain stages and don't, you know, progress because of whatever it may be, you know, trauma, yeah, beliefs that are, you know, not serving them. And so this concept of anyone can be an agent is this understand, and you, if you haven't experienced this yet in life, you will know what I'm talking about. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because you'll try to help someone see something about themselves or about their relationships, and usually it's about parental relationships, but it can be other things as well. But you know, it's usually about their parents. But that's like a whole other thing that is not necessarily you know, the right fit for this video. But you know, when you point out that there's ways to do things that are different than maybe what they learned as a child, that could be better for them, they will fight it because the familiarity and the fact that they're still alive and that they've had these beliefs and they've had, you know, they've been living their life a certain way and they're still alive, you know, the brain and the body operates on survival, not necessarily thriving, you know. So the woman in the red dress turning into an agent represents, you'll get, you know, this system, the people around you, if they're not ready for truth, like hard truth, they might lash out at you and spit some venom at you in the form of words. You know, in the movie it shows the agent with the gun. Yeah, it can be literally violent, but I think a lot of times it's more a psychological battle of words. And then he wraps up this scene, says, I've seen an agent punch through a concrete wall. Men have emptied entire clips, guns, at them and hit nothing but air. Yeah, I mean, not guns, but magazines of guns. Yet their strength and speed are still based in a world that is built on rules. Because of that, they will never be as strong or as fast as you can be. And I think this really speaks to the yin yang of life, the balance. You got the yin and the, I don't remember, it's the yin and yang. But you take any system that has a rigid rules that is not flexible and bending and adapting and using a nice balance, whether that's a religion with a doctrine, a government with a set of laws, at the end of the day, those two monoliths that have dictated human culture for millennia, at the end of the day, they are very powerful and they can exert their will onto the sovereign individual. But at the end of the day, they are still based on rules. And so what Morpheus is trying to communicate to Neo here is there's this intricate balance of understanding the yin and yang, of understanding that in life there's so many contradictions that can be true at the same time. I'm trying to think of an example. There's a book. Yeah, this book, The Dichotomy of Leadership, Jocko Willink, Navy SEAL. Aggressive, not reckless. Disciplined, not rigid. Hold people accountable, but don't hold their hand. Be a leader and a follower. Have a plan, but don't overplan. Be humble, but not passive. Focused, but detached. When to mentor someone, when to fire. Own everything, but empower others. These are just different chapters of this book. Be resolute, but not overbearing. So I think Morpheus is kind of talking about that same concept. As a leader, it can be a leadership. It can be just maneuvering as an individual, but building that foundation and understanding and being okay with conflicting ideas, and that cognitive dissonance, and again integrating it, kind of like the mirror, the cracked mirror that forms and comes together to make a whole. It takes longer and it takes more, I don't want to say effort, but maybe a willingness to embrace the unknown for some time. Like again, Neo's kind of like, I don't know exactly what's going on, but I'm going to keep following this even though I'm not sure. People, the agents, the agents inside the Matrix, they're sure. They have their rules and they'll follow them. It's like the same with the concept of, what was that study where they, people were brought in a room and told to flip buttons that would shock someone in the other room with electricity. I don't remember the exact name of the study, but that, the fact that people will follow authority even up until it would kill somebody just because it was an order by someone that's a perceived authority, So it's easier and in some ways safer to just like follow the rules, just have a set of rules and that's what it is and you just got to follow it. And so Neo's power comes from operating without strict rules. And you can get lost in that too, because rules also provide you a nice like psychological black and white, line in the sand, like this is right, this is wrong. But the gray area is where your power comes from, because while everyone else is like really sure about their rules, the curse of living in the gray area is like kind of like questioning yourself, and sometimes I think being maybe too hard on yourself, and maybe moving a little slower than somebody else would, because you're taking your time to really figure out what's right, what's wrong, what's best for me. Whereas someone who like knows the rules can like, move faster because these rules are what's right. And they move fast because like, okay, I need to do this. This person said I got to do this. I got to do this. But in the long run, those rules will hamper that person because they'll come in these crossroads of these challenges in life where the black and white answers don't really give them the full picture or equip them with what they need to handle the situation in the best possible way. So it's a little bit of like a tortoise and a hare type of thing. The tortoise is the Neo. It's the someone who's okay with the unknown and embracing gray area. And even to the point where they'll say, am I a good person? Am I a bad person? And what I'm doing is right or wrong? Like the moral battle of that. Someone's like, oh no, this is right. I know this is right, and that's it. And there's no questions about it. There's no curiosity about it. Or this is wrong, and I know exactly that that's wrong. That's evil. That's the devil. And I think there is some benefit to that, but at the same time, you'll that lack of questioning, that lack of going layers deeper, is going to leave you without a strong foundation. And then Cypher. So, talking about the same thing of everyone in the Matrix representing a part of the whole person. Everyone has this feeling of fear and like, when Neo sees Cypher in the ship, he's like, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I take the blue pill? And Neo's like, he doesn't really respond, Cypher's kind of projecting his feelings onto Neo. And he's like, I wish I could have just, basically not understood the truth. And, he's the Judas, of the story. He betrays everyone in the, on the ship, betrays Neo, Morpheus. And I think he has some resentment towards Trinity for rejecting him, as a man. And, I think there's this part in everyone wants to have like kind of the easy thing in life. And, instead of truth and, being outside the Matrix, he makes a compelling argument, says, actually, I think the Matrix is more real than the outside world. The outside world, we just eat like crap, and I just have to do what Morpheus tells me. He also has a lot of resentment towards Morpheus. He feels like Morpheus is just his boss. So he says, make me, I don't want to remember anything. Just reinsert me into the Matrix and make me like a famous actor, and I'll be okay with that, And he's eating the steak in the Matrix. He's like, I know this steak, it's not real, but it tastes really good, and that's all that matters. Like, so there's the temptation to reject reality and reject truth and just be like, you know what? Yeah, I know there's this like whole like self-actualization path, and I know there's like, ways in which I could improve and experience deeper fulfillment, but like it's kind of hard, and I don't really like the people that are doing it. It's like this darkness. It's this deception. It's this, it's like the trickster, villain, aspect that they introduced, where he makes a deal with the agents inside the Matrix. Like, okay, I'm going to give you Morpheus. I'm going to give you everybody. And, plans on killing everybody. And he's going to give up everybody when they all go into the Matrix, when Neo goes to see the Oracle. And Morpheus says, I think he says to Neo, like, the Oracle's never wrong. We're going to bring you to her to talk to her. She helped me, she helped Trinity. Now it's your turn. And there's this one part where he's waiting to talk to the Oracle in the waiting room here with these other kids, and one kid's like bending a spoon with his mind. I've never really understood that scene. So if you have an idea of what he means by there is no spoon, and he's just bending the spoon with his mind. Comment below this video. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that. But with the oracle, my best guess as to what the oracle represents. He walks in and she says, hey, don't worry about the vase. He says, what vase? He turns around and he knocks the vase accidentally and breaks it. She says, what's really going to bake your noodle later on is, would you still have broken it if I hadn't said anything? And so I think what the oracle represents is the inevitable realization that there is a debate of free will versus determinism. What is fate? Does fate exist? Are you just destined to do what you're going to do, and you don't really have a choice in the matter, or do you have some agency? Do you have some free will? And the oracle says, Morpheus believes, you are the one, you are the chosen one, the one who's going to free humanity, free the city of Zion, which is the last city alive on Earth in the real world, buried in the caves, hidden from the machines. But there's this point where Neo says, she's like, she's looking at him, and he's like, I'm not the one, am I? And she says, sorry, kid, you've got the gift, but you seem to be waiting for something. So she doesn't explicitly say you are not the one, which is important to remember. But I think there's this, she says, but don't worry, once you leave this room, I'm going to give you a cookie, you're going to feel fine, and you're going to remember that you don't believe in any of this fake crap. You're in control of your life, aren't you? I'm paraphrasing, but I think what's the right word? This journey of self-discovery, which is really what Neo is on. He's learning about himself. He's learning about the world and himself. Which, are they separate? I don't know. But there's, I saw this one Dan Lug video, and he talked about that. All knowledge is self-knowledge, and I'm not sure who he quoted that from, but stuck with me. But I think if you continue asking questions, and again living in that gray area, you're going to come across this concept of determinism versus free will. Is everything determined? Is it preordered? Is it just I am born and I am fated and destined to do what I'm going to do? And so the oracle, I think she represents that feeling inside of the person, psychologically inside the self. It's the struggle of, well, why try? Why do anything? Everything is just set in stone, isn't it? Like, it's kind of this this inner struggle of understanding and figuring out if you really do have agency in the world, if you are sovereign, if you do have free will, your own choices, or if everything is prophesized. So Cypher gives everybody up, kills a couple people, and they're able to capture, Morpheus. But Neo, Trinity, the others are able to escape, and the agents bring him to this skyscraper and start interrogating him at the top. And I think what Agent Smith represents in this moment is kind of a nihilistic, black pill, depression, really the downward spiral of negativity that you can experience, a depression. He's basically saying, we machines, we studied, we're like learning about you humans, and humans are not mammals because mammals, they develop a equilibrium with their environment, but you humans, suck up all the resources and move on to a new, place to do the same thing, and you destroy everything in your path. And he says there's another organism that behaves like that, and it's a virus. You humans are a cancer to this planet, and we're the cure. So there's this part where, I think Morpheus represents somebody who's really just going through some inner battles of negativity and these questions of like, why is this happening? Why, it's kind of the self, like when the self turns against, it's itself. We always have the, conversations going on in our head. Well, what happens when those voices are just negative and keep compounding on each other and making things worse? And you start to think like, I am a problem. I need to potentially be, I need to, it's like suicidal thoughts. Like he's right. The agent is correct. Like he's trying to break him down, and, that's what that mental state can do. It really starts to break you down, and you can start to feel like you don't know what's, if you should keep on living. Oh yeah, humans, yeah, like you can start buying into it. Yeah, you're right. Humans are a virus. I'm a virus. I'm wrong. I'm bad. And all those feelings. So there's also this one part where I've thought about this, and I think at one point I had an answer, but he says he's interrogating with a couple other agents, and he says to them, leave me alone with him. And he takes off his earpiece, which he's been getting orders from the whole movie. He takes off his glasses and he says, I need to get out of here. Like, I hate this place. I'm going to be honest with you. I just can't stand it. And he says, inside this mind. And the whole reason they want Morpheus in the first place is because he has the key codes to get into Zion in the real world, so that the machines can move in and kill all the remaining real humans on Earth, outside of the Matrix. So that's why they're trying to break into his mind in the first place. But he says, like, don't you understand, once we destroy Zion, then I don't need to be here anymore. And I think this is like, again, I think this is really keen on like suicidal thoughts. It's like Agent Smith can represent those depression, maybe depression, or those feelings of, I need to break your last hope. If Zion is the last hope for humans, the last free city on Earth, that's a macrocosm of what's going on inside the mind, which is a Zion of the mind is, yeah, like your idea of heaven on earth, or your hope of living a good, positive life. The depression or the negative, nihilistic black pill feelings is, okay, I need to destroy that, because if I kill myself, like, then that will be destroyed and I won't have to suffer any longer. So I think Agent Smith is really representing like the self that is suffering. And when he like is having this little private moment with Morpheus, he's revealing like behind the urge to control and to have these strict rules and control everything and make sure all the, he has this tight grasp on everything. He's revealing what the emotions are behind that. And it's this feeling of dread and hate and disgust and I don't know if it's fear. I don't know if I would say fear. Maybe a fear of staying trapped in the Matrix, because he says, I want to get out of here. But I think, behind the facade of everyone who is a strict, rule follower or has the system that tries to control, is someone who's insecure and doesn't, isn't having a good time, basically. He's like got the rank, he's got the status, he's got the power inside this world, and yet he can't stand it. The power isn't fulfilling to him. It's not something he wants. And so I think he can represent, something real, tangible in the practical world of like someone who, uh, embodies this type of feeling, but he's also can represent something in the mind where it's a self-destructive urge. It's the urge to destroy hope. If Zion is the hope on earth, and he wants to get into Zion, that is the self-destructive urge to destroy any last hope or potential of a good life, which is what a suicide would do. And so, I think that urge is to get out. But the thing I was thinking about is when the agents come back into the room, one of them is like, and Agent Smith stands up kind of like, almost kind of like in a guilty way, oh, whoa, like kind of almost startled. And one of the agents says, "What were you doing?" And the other one says, "He doesn't know." And I'm still thinking about this. If you have an idea about this, comment below. But he puts his earpiece back in, and I was reading on a forum. Somebody said it's like kind of going off the script, and he takes his earpiece out that he's getting all his orders from, and I don't know what that's supposed to mean. He doesn't know what he was doing. Maybe it has something to do with, since these guys, again, they operate on just strict rules and a bureaucracy and a power structure, that there's not much room for spontaneity. And so anything outside of his orders is uncharted territory. And so he takes his earpiece out. He's not following script. He's not in the hive mind of the other agents, as one of the forum posts I saw was talking about. Thought that was a good idea, because they all kind of like finish each other's sentences, and they all seem to be like one monolithic thing. And that's another thing, all the agents, when they're killed, they turn back into the same looking people, and that's I think that's representative of like the face of power is always the same. Morpheus, Neo, Trinity, they're more full characters. They have more room for spontaneity and personality because they are operating more in the free world, and they get to have their own sense of creativity and identity, whereas someone who is a slave to power or a slave to rules or a slave to corruption, they're all the same, because their personality will never expand past what the structure is that is enslaving them and kind of not propping them up, but giving them that status and that feeling of like they have things under control when they really don't, which is what Agent Smith realizes here. But him not knowing, I don't know. That's ironic. But I think maybe it has something to do with the fact that going off script is not something he's used to. I don't know. Comment below if you got some thoughts on there. And this is where, kind of going back to where I was talking about, like, I remember someone who I had a lot of conversations with, as I was, questioning a lot of things and starting to really embrace, truth seeking, is, I had this feeling of like, at one point I was like, I said to this person, oh, you're like Morpheus and I'm Neo, right? But then as time went on, that kind of switched too, like, and then I became the Morpheus to their Neo when they needed, something that I could offer through, myself and my own personality type and the way I see the world. So what happens is, Neo comes back in to save Morpheus, and, outside of the Matrix, they say, okay, we need to pull the plug on Morpheus and kill him, because, when someone's plugged in the Matrix, the only way they can come out is if they get the phone. But if they don't have the phone and they get unplugged physically, they'll die inside the Matrix. So Tank says, like, the agents are going to torture Morpheus and break into Zion. We need to kill him. I'm sorry, we have to do it. But Neo realizes that the Oracle tells him, either you or Morpheus is going to die, and it's going to be your choice. You're going to realize you're going to come to this moment, and there's going to be a moment where you need to decide, is it going to be you who dies or Morpheus who dies? And so Neo's like, I need to go back in. I need to save Morpheus. I'm sorry, like the Oracle, he tells Trinity, she told me I'm not the one. So, you know, I'm kind of expendable, is his thoughts. So I need to go back in and save Morpheus. And so what I think is that if you have those partners or those people on the journey of self-discovery with you, there'll be times when they help you and you help them. And if you're, you know, the way that different personalities come together and make each other stronger is, you know, helping with different blind spots, right? So, Morpheus's blind spot was that Cypher was, going to be a traitor, and Neo's blind spot was the Matrix, that he didn't know he was trapped inside. So Morpheus helped him out. So I think this is a cool moment of Neo coming in, and in the same way in real life, you'll have moments where you'll be able to help somebody with your own unique skills and abilities in a way that, they might be able to help you later, and you guys will both grow together. So he comes in, and they're doing something that is perceived to be impossible. They're going to, come through, get past security, get past the SWAT team and this gigantic skyscraper, make their way to the top and come get Morpheus. But Neo's kind of emboldened, and I'll get to why. So as you see, so then they make their way up the building, and they fly the helicopter, and they shoot all the agents inside the room, and they tell Morpheus to come out and jump. And this is the same concept, him saving Morpheus when he needs it, and being able to come through for somebody who helped them see the truth. It's like, it's providing the support. I think there's one other thing I wanted to mention about that. Don't remember. So Neo does the impossible with Trinity's help. Does the impossible, breaks into this extremely hard to, get into facility, and saves Morpheus from agents by, getting past everybody, flying a helicopter, grabbing him, throwing him onto a nearby building. And then, Trinity's flying a helicopter, and she's about to crash, and then Neo saves her. And Morpheus and Trinity are both like, oh my God, he is the one. And then Neo's like, wait, but I can't be the one. And he says, the Oracle, and then Morpheus cuts him off, says, the Oracle told you exactly what you needed to hear and nothing more. And I think what this is there's a moment from child to adult where, or it doesn't even have to be, I don't think it has to be the growth from child to adult, but the feeling that you are special and your specialness precludes you from doing work, providing value, working on yourself, growing, doing things special to you. I think there's a feeling that if the Oracle said, oh, Neo, yes, you are the one, the prophecy is true, you are special, you are going to save humanity, if that represents a type of thought that someone could have in their own head, the Oracle's not a person, but she's just, a manifestation of not delusions of grandeur, but the feeling that like, oh, I'm special. And again, it comes back to the dichotomy. It comes back to the gray area. It's like two conflicting thoughts that a human can have, which is, I'm special, I deserve a lot, I'm great, I'm awesome, right? You can have those thoughts and be totally justified in feeling those thoughts, but it's also a counterbalance of like, I'm nobody. I am, I need to like prove myself. Uh, I haven't, you know, earned what I need to earn. So I think, that feeling of like, yes, you have potential, but at the same time, you don't think of yourself as someone who has made it. You embrace the feeling like Neo goes back in the Matrix to save Morpheus and has extra confidence because he thinks he's not the one. He thinks there's nothing special about him. That's why he's willing to sacrifice his life, because he says, okay, Morpheus is more important than I am in this fight. I need to get back in there, save him, so that I'm going to die. Like I'm going in knowing I'm going to die, because that's what the Oracle prophesized. But would he have been so confident and so sure to go back in and save Morpheus had he believed that he's special, that he's the one, that he needs to be protected? So I think the Oracle kind of could represent the shedding of the idea that if you think to yourself, I'm special, therefore I don't need to do X. And there's times where that's something, a good thing to say, like, okay, I'm past this stage of my growth. I need to stop doing this so I can start doing something new that's going to take me to the next level. But there's a feeling of development where you develop into somebody who understands, like, you're learning about yourself and your skills and your gifts that you have, but that's not alone is going to take you where you need to get. So when you just like step into that, I guess it would be kind of, in this case, sort of a serving mindset. You're going to serve others, help others, and you forget it, and you get lost in that. You lose the self in that, not in an unhealthy way where you like ignore your own needs, but in a way that you're able to get out of your own ego for a second and kind of do what you need to do without being bogged down by like thoughts of entitlement. So then, Morpheus and Trinity and Neo get to the subway station. Morpheus uses the phone, gets out of the Matrix. Trinity uses the phone, gets out. But one of the people nearby sees them, turns into an agent, and shoots the phone dead. So once Trinity's out, the phone's gone. Now Neo's stuck with the agent. Fights him a little bit, kills one of them in the subway, but then another one just pops up. So he's like, okay, I fought. I started. Morpheus says he's starting to believe. He's not running anymore. He's facing some of these guys. But then he eventually does start to run, looking for the new phone. Breaks into the room that he thinks he's going to find the phone in, and the agent's there. Shoots him 6 times in the chest. And what revives him, what brings him back to life, even though he's died, is Trinity's kiss. So, the whole movie is kind of alluding, like, not alluding, but Trinity's kind of like, seems to be holding back something that the Oracle told her about Neo, about her. And it's the fact that the Oracle says, like, you will fall in love with the one. So Neo dies, but she's there saying, no, you can't be dead. It's not possible because I'm in love with you. So, I think it's kind of, there's a point where you'll fight back against, injustice or attacks on your human individuality, sovereignty. But there's points where all hope seems lost, that, it's kind of like the story of Jesus, like, Jesus crucified, dies, but then comes back to life. It's it's a little bit biblical here. But there's this sense that like in the short term, the real monolithic overbearing power structures are going to, get a small victory. But since they're based on rules and they're cold and they're power hungry and they're corrupt, they can't they can't achieve the next level of power, which is spontaneity, love, creativity, growth, optimism. And so I think that, Trinity's kiss here kind of represents that. It's like that next level of, that love and that connection, bond and joy of human connection, which is more powerful than, those strict rules. And so Neo comes back to life, and, he sees everything as these, floating green computer text, whatever you want to call it. And I think this is a moment, kind of the breakthrough moment I was talking about earlier, where you just break through and you see the world for what it is. And I remember I saw one YouTube video that was good. It was about, I can't remember the name of the channel, but it was about talking about Neo and his personality type based on the Myers-Briggs test, that he's an INTP. And it says that, like, an INTP personality type is like, wants to get the full picture of reality and wants everything to make sense. But I think just for anybody, not necessarily people of that personality type, there's a moment where, you have that breakthrough moment and he sees the matrix exactly for what it is. He sees the code. He sees what can be hacked, he sees the rules. He sees everything that he needs to manipulate it to his will. And, I think that represents a breakthrough moment where you say, oh shit, so this is how things work. Oh, take, in like a dating context, like, oh, women say they want this, but they actually want that. Or a professional environment, oh, everyone says I need to go to this college, and then my resume needs to look like this, and I need to listen to this boss, but actually it's not like that at all. Like, there's a whole another level of business that has nothing to do with the way that, the majority of people approach it. Same thing, you can take the same thing with, economics, politics, like, oh, everyone believes that this is money, but, there's this other economic, Austrian economics way of looking at things where, like dollars are just fake, or, oh, everyone around me is, super hardcore religious, but actually that's not, like, I see it for what it is now. Or, yes, government, politics, everyone follows this, two-party system, but in reality, there's so many things wrong that, it's, authoritarianism versus individuality and personal freedom. And, so whatever these, can be a culmination of different realizations or breakthroughs or things that, manifest in each other, where you get this just like more general understanding of how things actually work. And when you see the rules that other people play by, then you can use it to your advantage and you can be outside the system. So Neo wakes up, sees everything for exactly what it is, and there's no more illusions of what he needs to do to create the reality he wants. And I think that's one of the parts of the journey of self-discovery. You create your own reality. You create exactly what you want your life to be. You create your Zion. You achieve your Zion. You achieve your hope. And when you know what that is, when you know what you want, and you take the action on getting it, you'll create that reality for you, and you become untouchable. I mean, not untouchable, but the things that held you back, or the limitations that you put on yourself, or people put on you, or culture puts on you, they lose their real grasp. Yeah, so he's just stopping bullets, playing around with them. Agents comes up and tries to fight him. He's like, whoa, this is easy, actually. Like, so, I think this can represent, again, like if you look at the agent as a manifestation of somebody who's, reflecting their negativity, their trauma onto you, you know, you know, most of the one of the best strategies, yeah, is to run. It's usually to just like remove yourself from the situation. But I think I'm actually having a realization now. It's like there's maybe you remove yourself from certain situations that are not where you feel this agent, moving in on you. But maybe at some point you learn how to deflect those attacks. You learn how to do it with ease, and it doesn't bother you anymore, and you're able to not tolerate it or not have boundaries, but you're able to have it, move off of you without really affecting your mindset. That's could be. So at the end, this is the end. It ends sort of how it begins, where this call is being traced, and it's being, Neo's on the phone on a payphone, and you see this kind of like the machine is trying to trace his call. Where is he calling from? We need to go get him. But then all the numbers stop and says system failure. And I think this is like another extremely powerful scene of the whole movie, where Neo's basically like, Neo says basically, I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. And basically says, I'm going to show people what you don't want them to see. A world without rules, without borders, boundaries, in a world where anything is possible. And I think this is really powerful, system failure. It's showing, it's showing what Morpheus was talking about. There's a system. That system is our enemy. It's all the people are hopelessly enslaved to the system, and the system is what's really the big problem. Yeah, we will try to unplug people and get people out who are ready, but at the end of the day, it's like there's many that are hopelessly just dependent on this system. And so it shows here system failure. And I think one of those things that this can really represent is just speaking truth and consolidating all the things, not all, I won't say all, but just consolidating the past where you're able to move forward. And that's not about knowing exactly what's going to happen next. And if you speak the truth, whether that's in a family setting, in any sort of setting where you feel trapped by dogma, as Steve Jobs would say, and you have this moment where you're like, I'm just here to explain how the truth and reality as I see it and my experience, and I don't know if that's uncomfortable or not for you, but this is important, and I need to say it. And it's not saying, so I'm going to say this so that therefore X, Y, and Z can happen. X, Y, and Z, you're not worried about that. Neo's saying, I didn't show you how this is going to end. I show you how it's going to begin. And what that is you're creating a new world, a new reality for yourself. I wouldn't say creating a new reality, but creating a new, creating a new life for yourself that more matches with reality. Not matches, but that works in harmony with reality. And it's not about controlling what's going to happen. It's not controlling the outcome. It's not, I'm going to confront this person on, something that hurt me, or, I'm going to say sorry to this person who I felt I hurt, and therefore that this is going to happen. Or I'm going to be honest in this relationship so that X can happen. It's just, I'm going to be honest, and then we'll just see what happens. And then I will accept reality that is communicated back to me once I do that. It's not about controlling what's going to happen. It's just about creating a new beginning. Okay, we were doing things this way for a long time, and I was doing these habits, and I was falling into these beliefs, but I'm doing it differently now. And this is how I'm going to do it. It's more honest, more truthful, more in line with reality. It's more spontaneous, no rules. I'm just going to pursue my personal freedom and autonomy. And yeah, that's how it's going to start. Now, what happens after that, it's not under my control. It's a dedication to creating possibilities and leaving things that hold you back behind after you've addressed them and worked through them and had that healing process. Yeah, and there's this end scene where he steps out of the toll booth and just flies away, you know, showing that he's really got his hold and his not his hold. He understands the matrix now, and he understands how to operate in it in a way that is extremely powerful. Obviously, flying, you know, like Superman. It's kind of the resurrection, you know. He's ready to show people the world the truth, and I'm getting tired. Jeez. He's feeling free. I mean, that's it. You know, he goes from totally asleep in the very first shot of seeing him in the movie to flying. You know, it's that progression of, yeah, as I've said multiple times in this video, self-actualization, self-discovery, and, you know, freedom, the pursuit of freedom. And he's now at the point where with his curiosity and guidance and mentorship of others and confronting the agents, you know, confronting that power and approaching it with a different lens and different strategies, different tactics, he's able to, you know, free himself. And, you know, I think it can represent so many different things. But going back to the dojo, where you know, the dojo scene where I was talking about, there's different types of freedom. Some of them are very practical and tactical, you know, the financial freedom, you know, the freedom of having good health, being able to move and operate and express yourself physically. But then there's the emotional freedom, the spiritual freedom. It's the feeling that you can be yourself and nothing more than that. You can experience some of the most deepest, most powerful experiences in life in your own way, not dictated by any sort of dogma or, you know, hard set rules. That you can operate and express yourself as a, you know, an autonomous person and an individual. So it's the, you know, the triumph of the individual over a corrupt system. I think that's where I'll leave it. Thanks for sticking with me.